Well, a very good evening and thank you for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit Kumar and here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. HDFC Twins see sharp falls after MSCI rejects the weightage. The Large Street posts the worst single-day fall in 2 months. Sensex loses nearly 700 points and the Nifty loses about 200, wiping out all the gains made this week. E-commerce unicorn Meesho announces a second round of job cuts. Indian startups have laid off over 6,000 employees in just the first 4 months of 2023. Venture capitalist investments into Indian startups also dipped to their lowest level in 28 months. Startups raised 88% less funds in April compared to last year. Big tech continues to deliver as Apple's quarterly earnings beat estimates. India business sets a new record, clocking double-digit growth. CEO Tim Cook says that India is at a tipping point and is a major focus for Apple. Airfares surge after cash-strapped Go First suspends operations. A Mumbai to Delhi flight tomorrow costs nearly 15,000 rupees. Fresh trouble for Go First as 8 lessors send applications to aviation regulator seeking to deregister 20 aircraft. Shares of Manappuram Finance tumble after Enforcement Directorate freezes assets of Managing Director Nand Kumar worth 143 crore rupees. Manappuram management terms the investigation as unfair and claims that the ED has frozen shares worth 2,000 crore rupees. CBI searches 7 locations linked to Jet Airways in connection with an alleged bank fraud amounting to 538 crore rupees. Also searches the residence of its founder Naresh Goyal. The CBI filed a new FIR on a complaint from Canara Bank. 3 days after announcing its resignation as the president of NCP, a U-turn from Sharad Pawar withdraws the resignation, says that he respects the decision of a panel of senior leaders who wanted him to continue as the party chief. India's Foreign Minister Jaishankar and Pakistan's Bilawal Bhutto greet each other at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's meeting in Goa. But no bilateral meeting takes place between India and Pakistan. Minister Jaishankar meets with his Chinese counterpart and discuss the issues at the border. Manipur remains tense following ethnic clashes earlier this week. The Indian Army says that the situation remains under control as centre deploys more troops. The Northeast Frontier Railways suspends all train operations through the state for the next 48 hours. Mobile internet remains cut off. World Health Organization lifts the international public emergency status for COVID-19, says it is no longer a global health emergency. Mutual fund industry sees a sharp rise in new investors. Millennials account for 54% of the 1.57 crore new investors. 90% millennials preferred investing in equity last fiscal, while only 3% preferred investing in debt. Over 50% of new millennial investors are below the age of 32. Well, straight to the market action. A sharp sell-off on Friday wiped out almost all the gains made this week. Sensex lost nearly 800 points and the Nifty lost about 200 points. In what was the biggest single-day fall in 2 months, HDFC Twins came under significant pressure and Nifty Bank Index was down over 1%. Shares of the HDFC Twins fell by over 5% after index provider MSCI said it will include the merged entity in its large cap index at a weightage below Street's expectations. According to Nuvama Research, the announcement adjustment factor of 0.5 times could lead to an FPI outflow of $150 to $200 million as against the expectations of an inflow worth $3 billion. And well, in the oil market, crude oil prices saw some sharp recovery with the Brent moving closer to the $75 mark. This comes after a sharp drop in prices over the last few days due to fears of a slowdown in the US and China. Now, despite the recovery on Friday, oil prices are likely to end the week in the red. Well, in a fresh round of job cuts, e-commerce platform Meesho has laid off more than 250 employees. Now, the management said that they made an error of judgment by overhiring ahead of the curve. Akhil Vishwanath is here with the latest. Akhil, layoffs across the startup space continue. Tell us more.
That's right. Meesho has cut jobs for the third time in the last 1 year. If we include the 251 employees who have been fired in the latest round, the social commerce unicorn has let go more than 700 employees since last April. The company says it was a difficult decision, but a necessary one, as it looks to turn lean to achieve sustained profitability. Co-founder and CEO Vidit Atre, in a letter to employees, said the macro climate has undeniably and considerably changed. And as a result, the company has had to accelerate its timeline to profitability by tempering its growth targets and staying highly prudent when it comes to costs. Atres even admitted to judgment errors in overhiring ahead of the curve after the company witnessed stellar growth during the pandemic. Meesho is not alone in trying to cut costs to rectify the error in thinking that pandemic-era growth will last forever. We need to keep in mind that the funding winter has made it tougher to raise funds to keep up the cash burn. The firing spree, which began early last year, has led to over 90 Indian startups laying off more than 25,000 employees. 6,000 employees have been let go in the first 4 months of 2023. Now, besides Meesho, several unicorns have also cut jobs, the largest of them coming in edtech, with Byju's and Academy and others slashing jobs in their core businesses and at subsidiaries as well in multiple rounds. Back to you.
Right, Akhil. Thanks a lot for that. Now, sticking to the startup space, layoffs have partly been a result of deep funding winter. According to Venture Intelligence, VC investments have dropped by more than 80% since last year. Indian startups have raised only $2.4 billion so far this year, as compared to $24 billion in 2022 and $35 billion in 2021. In April 2023 alone, funding has dropped by 88% since last year. April has seen investments dip to a 28-month low. And well, in today's earnings, FMCG major Britannia reported a mixed bag this quarter. Net profit grew by nearly 50%. However, volume growth missed Street's estimates by a huge margin. Volume growth of 1% was well below the Street's expectations of 4 to 5% growth. The company said that they are looking to adjust the price of their products to gain market share. Meanwhile, Marico has met the Street's expectations in the fourth quarter as higher other incomes aided the bottom line. The other income included a one-time gain of 28 crores on sale of land in one of the overseas locations. The FMCG giant's revenue came in at around 2,240 crore rupees, while margins at 17.5% were a slight miss. More from the earnings space. Federal Bank's 70% net profit growth, which was aided by higher other income, beats Street expectations. Net interest income, however, was a big miss. The bank's NII saw its highest decline in the last 14 quarters. The stock ended 8% lower in trade. The bank's asset quality is the best, however, in 24 quarters. Well, some international earnings now. Tech giant Apple reported better than expected earnings during its March quarter, driven by record iPhone revenue. The company profit came in at $24 billion, while revenue stood at nearly $95 billion, beating Wall Street's expectations. Apple's India business posted a record quarter and clocked double-digit growth on a year-on-year basis. Tim Cook said that India is at a tipping point. Shilpa Ranipeta joins us more on Apple's big bet on India.
Well, at a tipping point and an incredibly exciting market, that's the word coming in from iPhone maker Apple on the Indian market, which its chief Tim Cook has said is a major focus area for the company. Now, in the quarter gone by, the iPhone maker said that it set a quarterly record in the Indian market. It grew double digits on a year-on-year basis. And while he was answering an analyst question on the India opportunity, he said that beyond the sales of its hardware devices like iPhones, iPads, etc., it does see a huge opportunity across the board, and this includes services. And this is despite the fact that India, he said, has low ARPUs or average revenue per user, but on a long-term basis, he sees an opportunity across the board, including services in the Indian market. Now, remember, Apple operates in the premium segment in the Indian market, and this is a segment that's not really been impacted by inflation or the macroeconomic headwinds that we've been seeing. But Tim Cook says that he sees a lot of people entering the middle class in India, and he hopes that he can convince some of these people to buy iPhones as well, and that could drive further business going ahead. Now, remember, Apple opened 2 retail stores, its first 2 retail stores in India last month, one in Mumbai and one in Delhi as well. Now, looking at a global level or at the company level also, Apple says that the iPhone in fact clocked a record revenue this quarter, and this was led by a very strong performance in emerging markets, which included India, but also South Asia, Latin America and the Middle East. Now, the iPhone revenues came in at about $51.3 billion, and overall revenue was down about 3% to about $94.8 billion, and its net income or profit was also down about 3% to $24.2 billion. But while this is a second straight quarter that the company has seen a decline in its numbers, this was still above the street expectations, which was in fact expecting a very soft quarter for Apple, but record iPhone sales have driven a performance beyond market expectations for the company. And while the company has not given a guidance on the June quarter, it has said that the June quarter will be similar to the March quarter, but that is given that there is no worsening of the macroeconomic outlook than what it is currently. Back to you.
Right, Shilpa, thanks a lot for that. Now, shifting focus to the aviation space, fresh trouble for cash-strapped airline Go First. 8 aircraft lessors have filed an application at the Indian aviation regulator, DGCA, seeking to deregister 20 planes. Now, the airline remains grounded, and the NCLT has reserved its order on a plea under the bankruptcy law seeking an interim moratorium. Danish Anand is joining us now with more details on the lessors moving the DGCA. Danish.
Well, fresh issues have cropped up for Wadia Group-backed airline Go First, as 8 Dublin-based lessors are seeking to deregister 20 aircraft. The lessors have filed irrevocable deregistration and export request authorization to the Director General of Civil Aviation. The lessors are seeking to deregister 4 Airbus A320 aircraft and 16 A320 Neo aircraft. Out of 8 lessors, Jiva Aviation has leased the maximum number of aircraft, that is 10, followed by SMBC Aviation, which has leased 4 aircraft to Go First, and the remaining 6 lessors have leased 1 airplane each. These planes have been stationed at various airports like Kannur, Nagpur, Delhi, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Chennai and Mumbai, and this development has come within 2 days after the airline announced its voluntary insolvency move.
Right, Danish, thanks a lot for that. Now, as Go First remains grounded, airfares have been surging. If you're flying from Mumbai to Delhi tomorrow, prepare to shell out nearly 15,000 rupees. Madiha Mujawar is joining us now with the reasons behind the rise in these airfares and a snapshot of prices across major sectors. Take a look.
Well, let me start with some context here before we get to the fares part. Go First was operating 180 to 185 flights every day and was flying about 30,000 passengers daily before filing for bankruptcy. Now, with the airline getting out of the market, at least for the foreseeable future, this 30,000 passenger traffic gets directed to other airlines. And with many flyers making last-minute bookings, all airlines who are seeing an uptick in demand are making the best of that opportunity. Now, let's look at some of the routes that are seeing a dramatic spike. And I picked up routes where Go First operated more flights. So if you're traveling on the 6th of May, which is tomorrow, look at the Delhi to Mumbai fares. The highest fare is 28,000 rupees and the lowest is 13,000 rupees. Look at the fares for some of the routes where Go First had a higher frequency. Delhi to Srinagar is 27,000 rupees, whereas Mumbai to Srinagar is 34,000 rupees. Next, check Mumbai to Lucknow. 17,000 rupees and the lowest fare on this route is 15,000 rupees. Another route where Go First flew, Delhi to Patna, highest fare is 18,000 rupees, the lowest is 12,000 rupees. Then Mumbai to Ranchi is 19,000 rupees, and these fares are easily more than double of the usual rates. Mumbai to Kanpur, another Go First route, is over 18,000 rupees. Let's see Mumbai to Kochi. The highest fare is 28,000 rupees and the lowest fare is 14,000 rupees. And important to note here that these prices are off as of noon today, and if you check now, some fares have even jumped further. I spoke to some leading travel booking platforms and they say prices are likely to remain high and fluid for the next few days before settling down at a level.
Well, meanwhile, the Travel Agents Federation of India has written to Go First CEO over cancelled flights. Travel agents say thousands of tickets had to be cancelled on account of the suspension of flights, following which passengers whose flights have been cancelled are calling agents and are clamouring for refunds. Travel agents say that they have already paid Go First for such tickets, and it is not possible for the agents to refund money to passengers until it is received from the airline. And while more action from the aviation space, the Central Bureau of Investigation has conducted searches at 7 locations in Mumbai associated with Jet Airways and its founder Naresh Goyal. Now, this search was conducted after Canara Bank filed an FIR accusing the airline of fraud worth 538 crore rupees. Well, speaking of investigations, the shares of Manappuram Finance slumped after its promoter VP Nand Kumar received an ED order which stated that the personal assets have been frozen. The assets include over 19 crore shares worth 2,000 crore rupees held by Nand Kumar in the company. Manappuram Finance said that the ED action has nothing to do with the company. Yash Jain now joins us with more details. Yash, tell us, why is the ED taking such action? Why have they frozen the assets? And what does the order say?
Well, to sum up what's transpired in the Manappuram case so far, the Enforcement Directorate conducted searches at 6 premises linked to the Manappuram Group. Along with those 6 premises, the residence of Manappuram Finance current MD, that is VP Nand Kumar, was also searched by the Enforcement Directorate. The allegation from the Enforcement Directorate is that one of the subsidiaries of the Manappuram Group, that is Manappuram Agro, collected deposits from people. This in a situation where it did not have RBI's approval to go ahead and collect deposits. The second allegation is that these funds which were raised through collection of deposits were used towards buying of immovable properties. Also, this money was invested in buying shares of the listed entity, that is Manappuram Finance. Also, the two sets of arguments and counter arguments coming from the company, that is Manappuram Finance and Enforcement Directorate, there's a lot of discrepancy in both those arguments. In the first case, ED says that they have frozen assets of the value of around 143 crore rupees, whereas Manappuram Finance says that the value of shares frozen by Enforcement Directorate itself is about 2,000 crore rupees. ED says that Manappuram Agro was not allowed to take deposits. Here Manappuram Finance says that the subsidiary did accept deposits, but those funds were used in Manappuram Agro itself. The third one is where ED says that the funds raised from these deposits went into immovable properties, also invested in shares of Manappuram Finance. Here Manappuram Finance says that in SEBI and RBI's investigation, there was no adverse findings on misappropriation of these funds. Finally, ED says that there was no KYC documentation done of the depositors. Also, there is no proof of repayment. Here Manappuram Finance has said that the entire deposit pool of about 143 crore has been returned back to those depositors, except for a very small amount of just about 9.5 lakhs. Also, Manappuram Finance on this particular issue did a conference call today in which the MD VP Nand Kumar has said that they will move the High Court against Enforcement Directorate's case, and that move will happen primarily on 3 prayers. One is to quash ED's case entirely. The second one will be to get the assets which ED has frozen, to get them released, and the third one would be to restrain ED from undertaking any further investigation in this particular case. Then the same con call, we also asked the MD 2 important questions. The first one was whether he will step aside as the managing director of Manappuram Finance till the investigation is going on due to a possible chance of a conflict of interest, to which the answer was that at this point of time there is no requirement for any change as far as the leadership is concerned. The second question that we asked him was on ED's allegation on misappropriation of funds, whether these funds were used in buying immovable properties and shares of Manappuram Finance. That particular question remained unanswered by the management as far as the conference call is concerned.
Right, Yash, thanks a lot for that. Now, demat account openings have seen a sharp fall since December 2020. A little more than 1 million accounts were opened in April compared to 3.5 million accounts in October 2021. Analysts have attributed this decline to volatile markets, overpriced IPOs and muted returns for investors. Well, speaking of the markets, mutual fund industry has seen a sharp rise in new investors. According to a report, millennials account for 54% of the 1.57 crore new investors. Sonal Bhutra is joining us now with more details. Sonal.
Well, yes, the mutual fund industry saw a sharp increase in new investors starting from FY20. While there has been a big Gen Z wave, you know who contributed the most to it? The millennials. Millennials, also known as Gen Y, are the ones born between 1981 to 1996. A report by CII CAM shows 84.8 lakh new millennials joined the mutual fund community. 1.54 crore SIP registrations were from this age group, 1.03 lakh crore of gross inflows, and AUM addition of 96,425 crore rupees. And 26% of these millennials were women. Between FY19 and FY23, totally 1.57 crore new investors joined the mutual fund industry, and 54% of them were millennials. And of the total SIPs, which stood at 5.34 crores, 29% came in from the millennials. Now, how has this segment grown in the last 5 years? We saw a big influx of investors in the mutual fund industry due to the pandemic. FY19 saw an addition of 29 lakhs. This actually fell to 21.2 lakh in FY20. FY21 was similar. FY22 saw a big jump at 48 lakh, and FY23 continued with additional investors despite the market volatility. Millennials continued to be the bigger contributor here, anywhere between 51% to as high as 57% in FY20. Actually, their share peaked at 57% in FY20. Even among the millennials, the number of investors born between 1991 and 1996, that has steadily increased over the 5-year period. Out of all the millennials who have entered the MF industry, 50% are born between 91 to 96, 30% between 1986 to 1990, and the rest in earlier years. Now, interest in making the first investment in equity funds intensified in FY20 and FY23, even though the market rally peaked in FY21. So as a category, equity continued to be the flavor, commanding 90% share in FY23, followed by debt at 3% and other categories at 6%. So if we map the preference for equity funds, it has seen a sharp increase from FY21 to FY23. The pandemic period could have made them a little cautious. The record performance of the market in FY21 may have made the millennials more interested in FY22 and FY23 to put in money there. Whether this continues or not, we'll have to track.
With that, it's time now to slip into a very short break. But coming up next, India's Foreign Minister Jaishankar and Pakistan's Bilawal Bhutto greet each other at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's meeting in Goa. But no bilateral meeting takes place between India and Pakistan.
Can you start banking with Asia's safest bank instantly? Yes, you can.
But can I also find a branch before I finish this?
Yep, on your phone and at 500 plus branches in India.
And what if I need a bank for my business?
We've got you too. For not just small businesses, but for the really big ones too. Live more, bank less. DBS.
Helps beat sensitivity fast. Sensodyne Rapid Relief.
Customer Fest Show 2023, co-powered by Freshworks.
Megatrends defining the future of CX, mapping out the customer journey of tomorrow.
It's been 16 years running this conference, the Customer Fest Show from 2008 onwards. On behalf of my team and Kamikaze, I would like to thank all my partners who made this happen.
Conceived and managed by Kamikaze.
On CNBC-TV18.
ये भारत का नंबर 1 सबसे भरोसेमंद फाइनेंशियल सर्विसेज ब्रांड है मुथूट फाइनेंस गोल्ड लोन खोलिए खुशियों की तिजोरी।
Well, it is day 2 of the SCO Foreign Ministers meeting in Goa. India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar greeted his Pakistani counterpart Bilawal Bhutto. However, the two countries did not hold bilateral meetings. Addressing member states, Jaishankar delivered a strong message on terrorism, saying that it must be stopped in all its forms. The Indian minister also met with his Chinese counterpart, raised the ongoing dispute at the India-China border.
The menace of terrorism continues unabated. Taking our eyes off this menace would be detrimental to our security interests. We firmly believe that there can be no justification for terrorism and it must be stopped in all its forms and manifestations, including cross-border terrorism. The channel of finances for terrorist activities must be seized and blocked without distinction.
5 Indian soldiers have been killed during an anti-terror operation in Jammu and Kashmir's Rajouri. Suspected terrorists who were hiding in a forest triggered an explosive as the army closed in on their position. Following the incident, mobile internet services were suspended in Rajouri. Manipur remains tense following ethnic clashes earlier this week. The Indian Army has said that the situation remains under control as the centre deployed more troops. The Northeastern Frontier Railways also suspended all train operations through the state for the next 48 hours. Mobile internet in the state remains cut off. 3 days after announcing his decision to quit as the NCP president, Sharad Pawar has taken a U-turn. Hours after his resignation was rejected by the top party leaders, Pawar addressed a press conference and said that he will continue as the president of the party. He, however, added that there is a need for a succession plan for any post of responsibility in the organization. Ajit Pawar, however, was conspicuously absent from the press conference. Wrestlers continue their protest, seeking the arrest of Federation Chief Brij Bhushan Singh on allegations of sexual harassment. Sports Minister Anurag Thakur has said that the Delhi police was conducting a fair probe and urged the protesting athletes to allow investigators to do their job and for the investigations to be completed. The wrestlers have been protesting at Jantar Mantar since the 23rd of April. And well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates continue.